Thanks for coming, everyone. As people are finding their ways in, if you guys haven't had a chance yet, there are drinks and refreshments, coffee, water, cookies in the back of the room. So if you guys would like to help yourselves to those, please do so. And then we'll get going here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks, everybody. All right, good evening, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Dr. Zachary Hayes. I'm an associate professor of criminal justice here at Cal State Bakersfield. And tonight we're going to be having a discussion about gun violence and how gun violence can be prevented through getting the community more involved. And this panel discussion is part of an ongoing series that the Department of Criminal Justice here at CSUB has been doing over the last few semesters. And each semester we hope to have a discussion about hot topics, controversial issues, other things going on in criminal justice. And today we're going to be talking about gun violence, and specifically, as you can see up on the screen, how some new technology called ShotSpotter is helping us not only address gun violence, but also helping us get the community more involved and also keeping everybody safer. So what we're going to do tonight is start. I'll have the panel introduce themselves, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the city of Bakersfield in regards to gun violence, in regards to community relationships, in regards to the ShotSpotter technology. And then we'll open up the rest of the time for some questions and answers if anybody would like to ask any members of the panel anything. So before we get going, I just wanted to say this event is co-sponsored by the Kegley Institute of Ethics. They're the ones who are helping pay to get this going. We've got a live stream, so good evening to everybody who's watching us on live stream. And so thank you very much to the Kegley Institute for Ethics once again. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to our panelists, let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into it. If you've got questions as we're going, please feel free to ask, but we will make sure we have some time towards the end as well. All right, I'll turn it over to Sergeant McAfee first.
How's everybody doing? Doing good? My name's Sergeant Daniel McAfee, Bakersfield Police Department. Currently assigned to our investigations division, where I run our organized crime and vice unit. I've been a police officer for going on 18 years now. Have a wide range of experience from traffic, gangs, street level narcotics, patrol, and so on and so forth. So I really enjoy doing forums like this. I don't mind having the tough questions asked, so fire away if you guys see the need to. So thank you for being here.
Good evening, my name is Jeff Burdick. I'm a lieutenant with the Bakersfield Police Department. I've been with the department about 20 years. I am a Cal State graduate in 1991, so do the math, it's a little bit ago. I've also worked numerous details, gang unit, robbery, homicide, juvenile sex crimes. My current position as the East Zone Commander, basically the city, if you envision it on a map, is divided north and south by Highway 99. So everything east of 99 is my responsibility. So when people have questions or concerns about things in their neighborhood or how the police handle stuff, I often get those calls. And one of the misnomers I think that hopefully will be addressed tonight is that policing is not a police department issue, it's a community issue. Just like if you were going to mow your lawn, for example, you have a lawnmower, that's the tool, but if you don't get out and push it, it doesn't get the lawn mowed. And we're the same way, we're a tool, we're part of the equation, but without the public's assistance in pointing us in the right direction and then being willing to speak to us and testify in court and those things when they come up, it makes it very difficult for us to do our job. And we are all members of this community as well, so we want to see what's best for everyone. So hopefully we can get that discussion talked about and show that we're all on the same page. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Agerton. I'm a crime analyst with the Bakersfield Police Department. I have been with the department going on 20 years now. I started off in the records department, and then I spent 10 and a half years as the clerk in the gang unit. After that, for the past 5 years, I've been a crime analyst. So I'm here to hopefully answer any questions you have.
Evening, my name is Mike Malley. I'm employed as a senior police officer in our department's gang unit. I've been in the unit for about 5 years now. I've worked at the department for 14 years in patrol as well as the gang unit. If you guys have any questions, concerns, things you want to address or ask me about the way that we do business, more than welcome to. It's an open forum. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. My name is Karina Ortiz, and I am the Community Relations Supervisor for the Bakersfield Police Department. I've been there almost 18 years now, and I have to be honest, I wasn't sure what kind of response you were going to have here, and it's very positive to see so many people. There's a few familiar faces. Thank you so much for being here. My job is working with our community. As you see, we have 8 community relations specialists and 4 officers assigned to our units. So the engagement, education, building rapport, giving people the opportunity to learn how we function as an agency, because we have a lot of different moving parts. I affectionately call my crew the jacks of all trades, masters of none, but if we can't get you the exact answer, we know where we can get the information. So again, education and outreach, volunteer programs, really being there for the community is kind of our facet.
All right, thank you very much. And just to say once again, my name is Dr. Zachary Hayes. I'm an associate professor of criminal justice. I'm moderating the panel this evening, one, because I specialize in doing my research and teaching on law enforcement, and 2, I was also the evaluator for a recent research grant that examined and evaluated the ShotSpotter technology here in Bakersfield, along with some of my fellow panelists here on from the BPD. So I will be your moderator for the evening. I'll also chime in every once in a while when we talk about the evaluation of the ShotSpotter project. But for now, I just want to start by discussing a little bit of what's going on in Bakersfield right now in terms of gun violence. Why is a panel like this necessary? So my first question I'll throw to the panel is, what is our situation here in Bakersfield with gun violence? And Lisa, do you want to start with a little bit of presentation here?
Sure.
Okay.
Trick.
All right, so Lisa, again, is our BPD crime analyst, and she's going to show you a bit of the data and what the department uses to know what's going on with crime. Thanks, Lisa.
Hello again. Okay, so ShotSpotter, we'll start off with our violence, okay, gun violence. This is aggravated assaults with a firearm, homicides, weapon firings, anytime a weapon is fired or brandished. This is what we're focusing on. This is 2018. This is the numbers we use to help us determine where the ShotSpotter system should go. Here's our 2019 data. You can see it's kind of moved down a little bit into the lower portions of the city. Each of those different colors is a different zone. We have north, central, south, hill, metro, and valley. So most of our crime happens in the metro zone, which is the blue zone on the right-hand side.
And could you maybe point out where some of the landmarks or major highways are running through town?
So right here, we have the 99. Can you guys see the cursor? I can't tell. I don't think you can see it.
It might be a little hard for everyone to see here, but hopefully everyone's familiar with Bakersfield. But we've got the 99 that's running through here, up and down through the middle of town. We've got Rosedale Highway up going east-west here, and then Stockdale Highway here. And then the metro zone is kind of in between here, east of the 99, between Rosedale and Stockdale.
So it was determined that obviously Bakersfield was having an issue with gun violence. We had a team get together and figure out what can we do about it. We heard about the ShotSpotter system. Has anybody here heard about ShotSpotter? A few of you have. So we reached out, became partners with ShotSpotter and the team, and we got the ShotSpotter technology. Now the ShotSpotter technology, we have sensors up on buildings. It takes 3 sensors to give us a hit, and we can triangulate in that manner. And this gives us a quicker response to the crime. So what could have taken us 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe no minutes because nobody told us about it, is now taking us 3 minutes to get to a scene. Now, this is crucial in that we can arrive on a scene and, one, either find the suspects. Hopefully we don't find a victim, but if we do, be able to get to the victim fast enough to get them to the hospital to get them care. That's the huge goal of the system. The shots get fired, 3 sensors or more pick it up. It's sent over to real live people who listen to the gunshots, and they determine whether or not it was gunfire or a firework or a backfire, and then the information is sent on to the police department. All of this takes less than a minute. Once we get that information, patrol is dispatched and they respond to the scene. So like I said, hopefully we're getting there fast enough to help anybody out. We went live with the ShotSpotter system on March 9th of 2018. Probably an hour or 2 after we went live, we actually had a homicide hit off of the ShotSpotter system, and arrest has been made in that case. So this is what our incident portal looks like. The information comes in, it says, okay, here's where your gunshot was heard in this area. And we can listen to it. You see all these lines, I guess. They're here. It tells us how many rounds were fired. So in this case, there were 7 rounds fired. This is the location they're at. Hopefully the audio is working. Or not. And we're going to end the slideshow. Isn't that the way it always works when you practice, but it doesn't work once you get there? Okay, could you guys hear those gunshots? So that's what they're listening to. So they hear those, they know that 7 gunshots, and they send it to our agency, and the agency responds as quickly as possible. I am the one of the people, we actually have 5 analysts in our unit, and I'm one of the people who it's my job to sit there and figure out how fast we are responding, and to make sure that the officers and the command staff know if it's increasing, if we're taking too long to get there. So that's the basic of that. Our job as crime analysts is also to direct patrol and direct our officers to tell them where we're having an increase in gun violence. And hopefully, with working with the gang unit, what we can do to affect that. Sir?
Hey, real quick, I just want to, also another caveat to ShotSpotter is all of us have smartphones, and we have an app for ShotSpotter. So whenever the shots are heard or picked up on ShotSpotter, the alert comes to our phone. So there's times where we might be able to get the shots, a few seconds ahead of when dispatch actually sends us. So if we have our phones readily available to us, we get the pop-up, we can hear the shots, know where they're at, and that even helps us a little bit more when it comes to response times. And sometimes, like the gang unit works certain areas, and if they might even hear them, and then once they get the alert, they know exactly where they're going to. which assist with locating the suspect, locating the crime scene, and something else. What Lisa was referring to about the homicide we had just hours after we went live, we were able to locate exactly where those shots were fired. We actually conducted our investigation very quickly. We were able to get video surveillance and work our investigation from that point on, where we end up having, I think there was 2 or 3 suspects arrested within not too much time. So, and I think those people are awaiting trial right now, but it is a good system, and having the capability from our smartphones definitely helps.
And how accurate is the system in terms of geographic precision, I guess?
I think it puts us within, was it 25 meters, and it's usually right on the money. Like, you'll get the hit, go in there, and within that 25 meters, you'll be able to locate exactly where the shots were fired, find the casings, or wherever the crime scene might be. So very, very accurate.
And how does that compare to, for example, when somebody calls in and say shots have been fired, what kind of information do you get from a call like that versus ShotSpotter?
If we get a call of shots fired, number one, you never know if the information's accurate. Like, hey, I heard some shots down the street. Well, it could be 1 street over, it could be 2 streets over. You know, it could be half a mile away, we just don't know. So we spend crucial time driving around trying to find exactly where the crime scene is at. With ShotSpotter, we know exactly when they were fired, where they were fired from, which allows us, again, to respond faster, and it cuts down that downtime, which we normally would spend looking for a crime scene, which is crucial when it comes time to investigate the scenes and locate evidence to solve these shootings.
If I may, the other part of that is some people believe that because we have the ShotSpotter system that we don't need them to call anymore, but we do. Because you may have crucial information such as, I heard a car go by, I heard somebody yelling, or any information that could be crucial to the investigation. So we still need people to call. Right now, we have approximately 14% of all the ShotSpotter calls have a reporting party, meaning somebody actually called and gave us information. Now, I know some people get nervous about calling, but you could be anonymous and just let people know what you saw or heard, and a directionality of a vehicle could help officers who are responding find that vehicle and stop them.
And some people might wonder, if we heard shots fired, we would definitely call in and say, hey, someone's shooting a gun off in my neighborhood. Why does it seem to be an issue? Why aren't people calling more? Why is something like ShotSpotter useful in such cases?
The biggest issue in some of these neighborhoods is it's really commonplace for gunshots like you heard on the recording earlier to happen. It's every weekend, it's every other night. People are afraid of retaliation from gangs. They don't want to go have to testify in court. That's usually our biggest problem, is they don't want their name to be written down somewhere. A lot of people are unaware that you can report things anonymously. You can call 911 anonymously. You can even talk to officers and have your name remain anonymous if you so requested. It's super commonplace in those gang-infested areas for that type of thing to happen, and some people have just gotten so used to it that as long as they're not affected by it and they don't see a victim or their house, their property isn't being damaged, they would rather just not call and not get involved. ShotSpotter is good because it gets us into the general area. We find victims a lot quicker. We also find suspects. It directs us almost exactly where shell casings or your victim is going to be at if they're still there.
And how useful are shell casings as evidence?
They can basically, through forensic science, determine if a firearm fired a certain group of shell casings that are left at a scene, and you can link said firearm to suspects when you find them in their possession later, or you find their DNA on the firearm, and so forth. In an overwhelming majority of the cases that I see that are shootings, that are either attempt homicides or gang offenses, those shell casings are extremely important. They are usually the key to putting a murder on somebody, or they're at least one of the most important pieces of evidence. Sometimes more important than the actual firearm itself, because forensically they can determine that a gun fired, the same gun fired multiple sets of casings or all the casings at a scene without even having the actual firearm in hand initially. It's very helpful for us.
Something else too that is kind of unique or interesting is if you have a shooting with more than one gun, on who shot first, where the shots came from, were you moving, were you running, those kind of things. The ShotSpotter system is able to tell the difference. It can't tell you what, it can tell you what caliber gun they think it is. They can tell you which gun was fired first. They can tell if the gun was moving, it was moving in a car as the sound travels. So there's quite a bit of evidence you can get when you go to build a case. And if someone is telling you the truth or not, if they say, you know, they shot at me first, but the evidence on the ground doesn't support that, and the shot spotter doesn't support it either. So you're able to do a lot more intensive investigation and questioning of suspects or people of interest when you have this extra information to use.
And it's been mentioned a couple times that gangs are the ones that are doing a lot of the shooting. Is that the case throughout most of Bakersfield, or who's doing the shooting in Bakersfield?
There are occasional incidents of celebratory gunfire where people are at a party, they're drinking, they're having a good time, and they fire weapons off in the shot spotter zones that we have. And oftentimes we do make arrests on those cases. It happens as well, but the overwhelming majority of violent gun incidents in Bakersfield, even if they're not statistically attributed to gangs, it just may be that we don't know who the suspect is yet, or we haven't identified a victim because they were not actually shot and spoke to the police. In other words, there are some that are obviously gang-related, and then some that are in their own category where we can't categorize them as gang-related because there's not enough information available. And then there are a number of them that are negligent discharging incidents where people shoot in the air or they shoot an object and they don't shoot a person or shoot at a person, if that makes sense.
And what has the gun violence kind of trends been over the last few years? We getting better? Is it getting worse?
Honestly, it's staying pretty consistent. Looking at the gun violence numbers, the highest we've been was 2016, since in between 2014 and now. 2016 was our highest, and we're staying pretty consistent. 2014 was the lowest we've been in quite some time, but I'm not really seeing it fluctuating up or down so much. It is really just staying middle of the road with all of my numbers. Right.
And so one of the things that the city has been doing to address the issue of gun violence has been ShotSpotter, but what are some of the other practices or strategies that the department has been using to tackle gun violence?
So collaboration is something that's really big through the Community Relations Unit, collaborating within the department, collaborating with community partners, nonprofits, community advocacy groups. We have our Bakersfield Safe Streets Partnership, which is a collaborative of some faith-based organizations, community advocacy groups, again, our participation as well. We've done peace events, peace walks, peace marches that are in direct response to fatalities that resulted from violence in the location where they happened. We have our police activities league, so reaching out directly to youth, providing resources to them, activities. Our Martin Luther King Community Center that's provided through the city of Bakersfield. It's a recreational center. We have officers that go out and participate with the youth there as well. So it's not just one specific event, it's participating in anything we can to be available to our community. So some of it's in direct response to a specific incident, and some of it's just ongoing efforts.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Karina was saying about the Bakersfield Safe Streets program, there are numerous nonprofit agencies, faith-based organizations, law enforcement organizations such as District Attorney's Office, Probation, Kern County Sheriff's Department, United States Attorney's Office. They all attend these meetings. And the reason is they're trying to come up with ideas and strategies out in the community that's going to prevent the next victim, the gun violence and everything that goes along with that. So part of that is, we do what we call gang call-ins, and we'll pick a certain gang if we think they're really active within the city, and we will call some of those gang members in, and we try to, it's kind of what you'd call maybe some sort of intervention type deal, but all these advocacy groups will get together and offer them services, talk to them, try to get them out of the life, with providing them with job training, with vocational training, anything that they can get in order to maybe get them out of the life. Now, I will say that sometimes it's difficult because they think that, that life is their life, and there's no way in or out of it. So what ends up happening is there are times where we get some of these gang members out of that life. You know, they really are in fact tired of the life. They want to get out of it, so that we provide them services. We get them vocational training. They do get jobs, and they hold those jobs, and some of them are successful. But I will be straight with you. Some of them just, they like the lifestyle. They don't want to get out of it. They enjoy the lifestyle. They tell us to our face we like the lifestyle, and there's nothing that we can do about it to get them out. Those are the ones, those are the problems that we have to deal with. And I will say that there's a very small percentage of people that we have to deal with that are the constant troublemakers. But there are ones that do get out, that want to do good. You know, they have kids, they have families they want to take care of. And there are opportunities, all kinds of opportunities for them to get out of the life. And the Safe Streets program is part of that, and the call-ins are part of that as well. And I think, Mike, there's one going on tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's actually a Safe Streets call-in going on right now in East Bakersfield for one of our local criminal street gangs. So it's something we're still active in and we're still doing even right now.
And how often do we have those call-ins?
We typically have, if it's a busy year, we might have 2 to 3. Usually we have 1 to 2 a year. And we try to shift our attention to each gang in Bakersfield kind of periodically. And then it also depends on who's most active in the community and where some of the violence is happening as well.
Let me ask you, some of you heard about ShotSpotter, and we do have gang issues here in Bakersfield. Does anybody know the name Major Sutton? Does anybody know the name Kason Guyton? Kason Guyton was a 5-year-old kid who was shot and killed by a gang-related shooting over at California and S Street a few years ago. Major Sutton was, I believe he was 2 or 3 at the time, got shot and killed as a result of gang violence. Somebody kicked in the door to where his mother was staying, shot his brother, shot him, and shot his pregnant mother. So, like I said, these are some of the steps that we have to try to intervene and get some, get these gang members' lives turned around. I mean, we're a big proponent of getting somebody's life turned around. We believe everybody deserves a second chance. We believe that everybody has an opportunity to change their lives around. Unfortunately, that's not everybody's mentality, but there are some that want to get out of the life, that want to take care of their families. And when Mike talks about how busy it is, when we had these homicides of these young children who have no choice in the matter, so yeah, we're going to have a call in, and we're going to be very proactive about what we're doing as far as the gun violence goes. So that's unfortunately, you have collateral damage when you have bullets flying in the air. And these 2 juveniles, they're gone now because of this collateral damage. Kason's brother was also shot that day. He survived. But it's a very tragic events, I should say, that go along with the gang violence. So when we say we're diligently working hard to try to prevent gun violence, to get the guns off the street, to turn the gangsters' lives around, to put the ones in prison that in fact need to go to prison, that's what we're trying to do. So, and ShotSpotter has helped us along with that. And the more technology that we can get, like Mike said, with the shell casings, the examination, forensic investigations, that stuff is huge for us.
Great.
I was gonna say, another thing too is that we have sort of a saying down there that the station, today's victim is tomorrow's suspect. And so with these rival gangs, is the gang unit is able to kind of saturate areas of town where, based on who the victims and who the suspects are, they can kind of predict perhaps where the next shooting might be or who the victims might be. And that's one tool we try to use. Another thing too is most of these guns, the vast majority of guns that are used in shootings, they're not purchased at gun stores legally. They're stolen. They're stolen from residential burglaries, which is one of the biggest places. So if I could say one thing as far as just kind of a general overall, if you own guns, that's super. Get them in a safe so they're locked up so they aren't taken in these thefts, because that is where the vast majority of these guns are coming from, is through lawfully owned guns that are stolen and then used in some sort of a violent crime.
I just wanted to mention about the Bakersfield Safe Streets Partnership. It's been going on for quite some time. I was part of it when I was in the gang unit. And yes, there are some that say, I don't want to get out. I love my life. I love the life. I love it here. One of the most heartwarming things I heard when I was there was that we had a gang member come. He says, nope, I'm not getting out. But he went home and said to his brother, but you're not getting in. And here's the reasons what you need. and let's get you on a good path. So that was a wonderful story that probably wouldn't have happened without the Safe Streets Partnership and everybody there. Working with the police department and the clergy, the faith-based organizations, they also started a Don't Shoot campaign where we create posters and we put them in the areas basically saying, don't shoot. You know, these kids want to grow up and they want to have a life where they can go play in the street.
Yeah, and to jump more on the Bakersfield Safe Streets Partnership and the primary purpose of this panel discussion tonight is getting the community more involved. I do want to let everyone know that the Bakersfield Safe Streets Partnership is open to the community. It meets every single month on the first Tuesday of the month at typically various places downtown, but it's open to the public. They always like to have people come and hear what's going on. The PD is always present to give updates about everything. Again, members of local clergy, members of local businesses, local service providers are all there. And I'm there a lot too, and we'd love to have more people get involved, because part of fixing or addressing these problems is getting the community more engaged, is getting more people to participate and help out and fight back. And one of the ways that can be done is for some of these gang call-ins that we do a couple times a year. There's always need for volunteers, assistants to help set up those call-ins and things like that, to help serve as intake people, to write down information and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in getting more involved, please let us know at the end of the panel, and we can get you some information and get you on a newsletter or an email list for the future meetings.
Yeah, just what Zach said, come to one of the meetings, check it out, see what it's all about. We love hearing new ideas, new strategies, and I know that you guys are all here interested in what we're talking about, and I know you probably have some ideas. We're more than willing, we're open to hearing different strategies, ideas you might have that we might be able to incorporate. You might know some agencies here in town that might provide some vocational training, some job training, anything that might help facilitate some of these call-ins and everything else. So when we talk about we partner with the community, that's exactly what we're trying to do. The Safe Streets program is all community members that live in this community. We have we have Marilyn Droppers that's sitting right here, part of Community Trust, and she's at every meeting. She is a big proponent of Safe Streets as well. So we have a lot of people who just want to help, and if you're willing to come by and sit through a meeting and voice your opinion and ideas, we're more than welcome to come by.
Great, and kind of sticking with the theme of getting the community more involved, another thing that I've heard the department does is the principled policing classes. Can anyone speak to what those are?
That's actually a class that's held once a month for our staff, and Marilyn, you've been to a few of them, and we appreciate, Marilyn is a strong community advocate and truly cares, and would be a great lead for anybody who would like to follow and how they can get involved in their community. Obviously partnering with us, we would appreciate it. But this is a class that's held once a month for our staff. And if any of you are interested, it is an all-day class, but we do have one coming up in March. I would be glad to take your information, or if you would like to take my information, I'm going to give my number pretty slow right now, 326-3024. Again, it's 326-3024. It is an all-day class. It is a perspective building class, and it is about different perspectives and historical, but it is for our staff. But one of the most impacting parts of this class is community voices. So for those of you that are truly vested and interested in being a part of some of the change and contributing to the good that needs to happen, that everybody needs to take part in, I really like your analogy, LT, where the lawnmower is the tool, but the push is really what makes it go. If you guys are interested, I'd love to hear from you guys as far as attending one of our classes. It's for our staff, but again, one of the most impacting pieces is having that perspective from community members. And again, we're a pretty diverse community. We want all facets of our community to be able to share their voice with us during this class.
One unique thing about the class is you're going to be sitting with actual police officers in the class. So, and then throughout the class, we have open dialogue. And and we're talking about some real serious dialogue, like real talk in there. And the officers will engage you with questions you might have, and they might be tough questions you might have for them. But the goal is to integrate the community with those officers and kind of hear the community's take on what's going out there on the street and in the community. And again, the officers will relay the same information back to community members as to what they're doing and the things that they see from the community. And what we're trying to do with that is bridge that gap between the community and officers and get them on the same page and get them to start communicating with each other and start working together with some of the stuff that's going on in the city. And there's been, I think it's been going on, Karina, what, for a year or two now?
Well, this is going to be our third year.
Third year. So, and we'd love to have community members that would love to come. And go ahead, Marilyn.
I believe the next date is March 11th, Wednesday, March 11th.
Yeah, but
Wednesday.
we need to confirm so that way we have enough people, so that's why I shared my number. That's okay.
I mean, if everybody in this room wanted to go sit in there, that would be outstanding. I mean, the officers love talking to the community. Sometimes, there's spirited conversations and hard conversations, but I'm a big fan of having spirited and hard conversations because nothing gets done if we tiptoe around issues. So if people have tough questions and want to ask those questions and ask why we do certain things and so on and so forth, come by one of the classes and ask those questions. Like I said, we're up here for a reason because we're willing to answer the tough questions, and sometimes people might not like the answer. Sometimes as officers, we don't like the answers to the questions we ask. But hey, that's part of moving forward, and that's part of making progress out in our community because we all live in this community. We want to make it safer. We want to make it safer for our families, for our kids, and this is just another tool that we use to do that.
And we provide lunch. So you're there all day, but we provide a really good lunch.
And are there any other specific things that the department does that really tries to engage the community? I believe there's like Coffee with a Cop, right? Is there anything
We
else?
have Coffee with a Cop. We are actually working on our Public Safety Day in the park. It's been a while since we've been able to host one of those. Again, we have our National Night Out. We have our Christmas basket program. This year, we're doing another Halloween event, which super excited. It's been a lot of fun. Lisa, I missed you last year, but we're looking forward to this next third event. But just different ways to engage with us. We provide tours for folks if they want to come in and see what the police department's like. So, I mean, any opportunity to engage, events. How many of you guys follow us on social media? Oh, I did not see enough hands go up. How many of you have social media? Yes. So we do have Twitter, we do have Instagram, we also have Facebook. How many of you guys are on Nextdoor? Nobody's on Nextdoor?
I am.
Wow. So in this day and age with social media, it's one of those things, we really try all different facets to get our word out, to get our information out. But in speaking about some of the ways that you can get involved, follow us on social media. See the message that we're trying to put out there. We're inviting feedback. We want information, but one of the best ways to know where we're going to be at all different times, things that we're getting involved in, ways that you can invite us to be part of something that you're involved with. We'd love to hear that opportunity for us to get involved as well. As follow us on social media. Reach out to us, email us. We're there. We're more than welcome to hear and get involved.
Great. And to really help us all understand, because I think a lot of people don't view the community as part of the tool in the analogy to help mow the lawn. The expectation is that's your job. What is it that you actually want from us? What, in the analogy of pushing the lawnmower, what can the community actually do to help out? What is it specifically that is needed from all of us in the public that can help you all do your jobs better?
Again, we're just part of the equation. So when we get a call for service, first of all, you have to call. If we don't happen to know about it, we can't do anything. So you need to report. A bunch of what Lisa does in the crime analyst department is analyze calls for service. So people will call and say, we have a problem over here, and she'll do the math and do the look at it, and we've had 2 calls in a year. So that doesn't show up on the map for us as a problem, so we're not devoting energy there. So if you don't call, we don't know about it. So that's the number one thing I would say. Second of all, when you do call, don't be afraid to engage officers. We're not going to bite your head off. So talk to us, provide the information you can. I know it's scary depending on what kind of crime you're reporting, and people don't want retaliation or harm to come to their families. But to answer the questions you can and to do your civic part of the equation, because we have to know about it first, and we have to investigate it. We have to put together a report and an investigation that's of a high enough quality that the district attorney's office will take a look at it and then ultimately, hopefully, file the case, and that just starts the court process. So if we don't have good information, we don't have good witnesses, we don't have good evidence, people don't call in, we miss evidence, which happens every day. We'll miss something. Video camera, someone may have witnessed something, something may have driven off, a piece of evidence walked off, whatever the case may be. And if we don't know about that, we can't find it, it might be the key piece to making a case viable from a prosecution perspective. So you don't realize how important a part you are of the equation. There's 400-ish officers for about 400,000 people on any given day. So if you do the math, the chances of being in the right backyard or the right location at any given time is almost impossible. So we really need your eyes and ears to help fill in the gaps and get us pointed in the right direction.
It really comes down to effective communication and being willing to share information, but at the same time receive information. One of the programs that we offer through our community relations unit is Neighborhood Watch. And I know that sounds like a really antiquated old program, but it doesn't get more personal than where you live. Communicating with your neighbors, communicating effectively with your neighbors, communicating with us what it is that you guys are seeing. Everyone has different routines. You know, some people work days, some people work nights. As students, you guys are all over the place. You guys don't have the same, so your schedules and your routines are going to be a little bit different. But that being said, you guys are going to recognize certain norms for your communities and where you're at on your streets and your blocks, and you guys are going to be the first ones to recognize what's out of the norm. What's out of the norm, and questioning why does this stand out? What is that information? What does that look like for us? You know, those are the details, because I can't tell you, I've worked in our communication center taking calls for service, and I can tell you right now, no one calls the police department for a good day. And that being said, when they're making that phone call, they're stressed, they're upset, they're scared, they're feeling a series of emotions, and sometimes they're not communicating everything that needs to be communicated that allows our officers to be effective. So I really think the main thing is effective communication. Give us the opportunity to come out and engage with you, share how we work as an agency to give you the information, to give you the tools, so that when you call us, these guys are able to be effective when they're going out.
Let me ask you this. We talked about social media and put you on the spot. How many here know how to text? Raise your, come on, who knows how to text? So with the BPD, we've set up avenues to where you can text in a tip, you know, to be anonymous. You can say, hey, I saw this at this location, I got a license plate, here's a license plate number, and you can text it. You can call in anonymously. You know, there's several different avenues that you can get involved, because you guys have all heard the term, see something, say something, right? So, I mean, there might be something that you see that you don't report. However, 6 months down the road, you might have a family member, the same thing happened to you, and then you're asking, well, why isn't anything getting done? It's because nobody's calling in, and there's no help when it comes to that. So, you know, we always ask the community, if you can, do your part to help us out with just minimal information. If you give us just minimal information to work with, you give us a license plate, a description, a direction of travel, just anything, we're good at our jobs, and we can take that little bit of information and we can turn it into an arrest, or we can turn it into something good. You know, because I don't know if you've kind of paid attention to what's going on, but with some of the decriminalization in California when it comes to laws, property crime is through the roof. Stuff's getting stolen, packages are getting taken off people's porches, cars are getting broken into. Numerous things are happening with regards to property crimes. And I know people have cameras on their houses. I know people see certain things, and they're like, man, that car doesn't look right in my neighborhood. You know, it just doesn't belong here. Send a text in, call in, say, hey, there's a weird vehicle in my neighborhood that circled it 4 times. Here's a license plate. And we do the rest from there. You don't necessarily have to get involved, but there are going to be big cases like, you know, homicides or shootings and things of that nature that, yeah, we might need your help, and there might be a time where, yeah, you might have to go to court. But I think as a citizen, as a good citizen, that we kind of owe it to ourselves to do the right thing. And that's what it comes down to, is doing the right thing. You're not going to be labeled a snitch or a tattletale or this or that. You're affecting the quality of life here in Bakersfield where we live. And so that's the reason why we have all these avenues for people to report certain things.
And just piggyback on that, a lot of people think that I only saw one digit on a license plate, or I saw, he had a brown shirt on, or whatever the case may be. But if you think of it as a puzzle, how many pieces are in a 500-piece puzzle? If you've got one little corner, if you've ever worked a puzzle, sometimes the one little piece, you get it in there, and all of a sudden the picture starts to come in focus. So never minimize the amount of information you have, no matter how small it is. It might be the one last little piece that when you hook it to everything else we've already got, that's the missing piece, the missing digit, missing whatever, which gets us in the right direction. So don't underestimate the value of the information you do have.
This lady right here, sitting to my left, is amazing. She's a crime analyst, and her staff, they can take those one digits or whatever, and they can turn that into 20 vehicles that we could eliminate. There's all kinds of information that she's able to get. I mean, if you need something, some information, and she'll dig it up. I trust you, I assure you. This lady right here and her staff are amazing, so they can do amazing things with technology. And his lawnmower and stuff like that, he's great with that analogy too.
All right. We're actually reached the point where I think where we'll turn it over to questions, and I think I've already seen a few hands up, so why don't we throw it out to our audience, and if you guys can make sure you speak up so we can hear. Let's start right up here up front, please.
Can you provide that number for us to text in?
Just text it. Let me find it.
Give us a second, we will get that to you. Actually, we'll get it for everybody.
Yes, where is ShotSpotter deployed, and what percentage of the Bakersfield area is actually under ShotSpotter?
We currently have about 3 square miles. It's kind of a secret where it is for reasons that kind of make sense, but it's a 3 square mile-ish area. We are currently looking at adding another 3 miles to that current footprint. And the sensors, the technology, we don't know what it looks like either. It's very, very secret because they want to make sure it stays in place and doesn't get souvenired. So, but I mean, ideally, it's something that the bigger the footprint gets, the more effective it is. So, but it's scattered. So there'll be 6 square miles hopefully here soon. So.
Any other questions?
What is the cost of the community for ShotSpotter?
What is the cost of the community to the ShotSpotter system?
So the initial, get my microphone back, sorry. So the initial cost of the ShotSpotter system was actually paid for by a federally funded Project Safe Neighborhoods grant. And so the Bakersfield Police Department applied for a grant in 2017 that began, I think, later the same year. And that actually paid for not only the ShotSpotter technology, the installation, subscription service for the first couple years, but also the evaluation that we did of the program. And so then once that project ended, there still is a continuing cost to the community. I'm not sure off the top of my head what that might be, but that is something that the technology is installed, but it is kind of like a subscription service that needs to be continued to be paid for moving forward. And so that would be part of, and do we have an idea maybe?
Last year was 65 per square mile, now it's 70,000.
Okay. So 65,000 per square mile?
Last year, which you
Last
have currently deployed, that's what your contract is.
Okay. So $65,000 per square mile. Last year at least.
And again, when we got the grant, we wanted to see how the technology works because places like Colorado, Chicago, Philadelphia, Sacramento, I'm not sure if Fresno has it or not. I believe they do, but just different agencies have been using it and have been successful with it. So with the grant, as a pilot project for us to see how it's going to be effective in some of our areas that were concentrated with gun violence. And we have seen that it works. I mean, the technology works. We know that it does cost a lot of money, and the department is looking to purchase, more in order to get more coverage in some of the areas we're having issues with gun violence. And my philosophy on that is, how do you put a price on a life that's saved? How do you put a price on a Major Sutton or a case in Guyton that doesn't get shot and killed because we're able to respond, get guns off the street, and everything else? So unfortunately, technology nowadays, even with our smartphones and stuff that's out there, it costs money. It really does. But if you combine that with some good old-fashioned investigative police work and things of that nature, it makes our job a little more successful when it comes to catching these people, getting the guns off the street, and prosecuting them.
Something we didn't talk about much, we talked a little about shell casing. So we go to the shot spotter, activation goes off, officers arrive, and there's a couple scenarios. Either you find a victim on the ground and we provide medical treatment and get them to the hospital. We find suspects and victims and deal with those. Sometimes we just find shell casings, and it's quite often that if any of you use Google Maps, one of those things, you put a little pin dot on your map, it's really pretty that accurate. If it says it's in the middle of 123 Main Street, if you walk to the middle of 123 Main Street, you'll find shell casings. It's really amazingly accurate. So if there's no victims, no suspects, just shell casings, the officers seize those. Obviously, they are then processed for DNA, so we can see, we can find out who's touched them. Then they are sent to the DA's office, and their DA's lab uses a program called Evo Finder, which is a shell casing comparison program. It is only locally, has a database of local shell casings. However, they're able to then take this shell casing at this crime scene is the same, it came from the same gun that this crime scene over here does. And as they start to put pieces together, we can maybe find out which gang has the gun based on who the victims are. We can find out where the gun might be going next. We know where to start looking, if we're going to start doing probation or parole searches, who we should start focusing on. And even though we may not make an arrest on the actual shooting that the shot spotter initially put us onto, in cases we're able to make arrests and prevent further gun violence because we're able to get that gun off the street by using the technology. So it has several ways it can be beneficial, but one of the ones that's kind of quiet in the background is where you start to compile this data based on the shell casing evidence and then build cases from an investigative standpoint.
So to get back to her question about submitting, you can actually hit 911 in the to field, but you need to make sure that in the body of the text message you put the location of where you're at. You can also submit tips online, and this one's really easy accessible. You can go to our police department homepage, or you can go directly to www.p3tips.com, and with that you can actually submit video and pictures with that as well. So if you're submitting tips, that's anonymous information that you want to submit, you can do it that way
And
as
can
well.
you repeat that website again?
Yeah, it's www.p3, and it's the letter P with the number 3, tips.com. So www.p3tips.com.
Is the app still active?
I didn't see the app on there.
Oh, I have the app on my phone, the P3 app.
Is everybody familiar with the incident that happened by Foothill High School, with stabbing? You know, I guess you'd call it was a homicide. So the P3 tips, we review those up in investigations all the time to see what information is coming in. My unit deals with everything from prostitution, human trafficking, gang violence, you name it, narcotics. My unit deals with a lot of stuff, so I'm constantly going through those tips. And I will say that there were several tips that came in regarding that Foothill homicide with actual video from social media, Snapchat, Instagram, stuff like that. That was extremely helpful to the Kern County Sheriff's Department who are investigating that crime. There was actually video of the crime that people had sent in, you know what I mean, to show the suspects and everything else. So, and, you know, they can still do it anonymously. But that information is so helpful because you can literally, with the HD quality of social media, you can see actually who the suspect was. We don't need somebody to come in and testify about that. We know who it is based on what we have in front of us, so it keeps that person out of it. And that's the little things that we're talking about. If you happen to capture something when you're FaceTiming or you're, you know, got your phone out the window, it might be, you never know what you might capture on those things. And it's real easy to send it into the P3 tips or online, whatever you may do, and that you'd be surprised that little bit of information that you give us goes a long, long way to solving some of these crimes. And some of that stuff that came in from that Foothill High homicide was pretty incredible, and we actually are impressed and thank the community for that stuff that came in.
Something that just made me think of too is no matter what kind of crime you report, if you're reporting a party down the street from your house or a fight or what have you, when you call the comm center, you can tell the dispatcher that you would like contact with the officer, but you'd like phone contact and not. A lot of people are leery about having the officers walk up and start knocking on their front door and everyone's going to see. So if you want to talk to the officers, we all have phones this day and age. So you can ask for phone contact only, and the officers will call you. So you can remain somewhat anonymous, at least to your neighbors or whoever might be in the immediate area to perhaps see. The other thing we do too is we intentionally hand out a lot of business cards. We intentionally knock on a lot of doors when we go to neighborhoods. And part of the reason for that is to look for evidence and information. The other part is to try to muddy up the looky-loos as to who we're talking to or who. If we went to one house and knocked on the door, and that's the only house we knocked on, then anyone watching would know that that person might be the one who gave up some information. But if we knock on every door in a neighborhood, in a block, everyone's just as likely to be the person who gave information as the others. So there are ways to provide information without putting yourself quite out in front of it as much as you want.
Great, thank you. Looks like we have another question in the back.
This question's for Lisa. How are you able to use your crime analysis skills to find out with just the first digit of a license plate?
How can I do it, or can I do it?
Well, both.
Both. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. I can tell you that. The more information we have, the better. So I'm not really savvy on cars, but I've been studying the icons on cars, trying to get that memorized. If somebody could tell me, okay, well, it was a Toyota Corolla and it started with an 8. That really narrows it down for us. If there's a picture of it, I will sit there and I will look through every picture on Google and try to find, looking at every aspect of a car to try to determine what year that car is. So we are looking at every single angle and aspect of a vehicle to try to find it. And it takes quite some time. There's been times where I'm staring at cars so long that I just can't look at cars anymore.
So not 2 minutes like it is on TV?
No, there's no easy button. But crime analysts are awesome, I'm just gonna say that.
You know, the other thing is too, you know, while the one digit is my example, it might not be enough to automatically point to one car, but if you figure there's, on a California license plate, there's 9 possible first digits. So if we're down to one digit, you've eliminated the other 8 to even have to look at, if that makes sense. So that's quite a bit of help when it comes to start digging through vehicles and license plates. And like she said, if you think it's a Toyota, even if you don't know what make or what model of Toyota, that narrows it down a little bit more. So every little chunk you can take off of the total makes it a little bit easier. So every little bit's helpful.
Including color. If you know the color, that's very helpful.
Yeah, I got a question. So I like the app like you displayed there. I'm a computer science myself, and I'm just wondering about the shot spotter. Does anyone monitor the sound of the shots? Because any car can actually make that sound, or anyone can actually fake that sound. So what if someone faked that sound from a different area just to cover up something else? You get the point.
You want to answer that, Ken, or you want me to handle that?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I'm Ken Bernard. I'm a retired police officer from Sacramento. And I didn't sit on the panel because I'm a brand new ShotSpotter employee, but we've had ShotSpotter in Sacramento for 3 years. So I can tell you from the company's perspective, we have about 150 employees. Most of them are mad scientists, not police officers, and they build algorithms that can separate the sound of a car backfiring, and smart learning on the computers recognize that's a car backfire, not a gunfire. Same thing for fireworks. Occasionally it's tricked, right? So refrigerator falls out of the back of a truck and it has the exact same decibel level as a gunfire. And what we ask agencies to do is report those misses to us so then we can further refine the technology involved in the system. Did that answer your question?
So, for example, let's just say one guy just purchases a gun that makes the sound of a gun, and he tries to cover up another crime from a different area. So, for example, let's say there's 2 guys. This guy's trying to shoot someone, and the other guy has the fake gun. So the guy with the fake gun, with the fake sounds up from a different area, and the other guy sounds up from a different area. So he can drag attention to him and cover up the other guy. You get the point?
Well, that's why it's a lead, it's a start, and that's why the police officers on the scene are going to have to sort through the fake gun and the real gun and sort all that out. But
Get dispatched to both.
It's going
Right.
to pick up both, and we'll be able to determine again, you know, I mean, we've had calls where, you know, there's fireworks going off, but the system can differentiate between fireworks and gunshots. Same thing with the backfires, or, you know, Lieutenant Burdick's lawnmower, you know, missing a piston or something, or anything of that nature. I mean, we've had balloons pop that have set it off, that we have to determine that they're not gunshots and things of that nature. That's how sensitive these sensors are, and they pick up a lot of stuff, and they're able to differentiate and get that information to our communication center through the ShotSpotter analyst.
I don't need a microphone, do I? Can you hear me?
The people on the live stream.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a great point. So when the system picks up a sound that the system believes is a gunfire incident, it immediately, in Silicon Valley, we have a room about half this size that's filled with live people who, the system goes off at the company, they actually listen to that, and they confirm what the system is saying. Yeah, that's gunfire, right? And so the human ear is a second stopgap to try to refine that. And so we, like that. So we do our darndest to make sure that we don't send officers to things that aren't gunfire, but it can happen. And all that happens in less than a minute, that the system picks it up, a human ear listens to it, and then we send it to the agency.
The number of misidentified shots is minimal over the time we've had this system. And as a matter of fact, the current boundary in spots actually borders county jurisdiction. And it's not uncommon to have a gunfire incident in the county that our system actually picks up. And then we call the sheriff's department and say, hey, you've had a shooting. And it's not miles away, but if it's within a few blocks of the sensors, it'll pick it up. So it's amazing how accurate it is, and how well the computer is able to figure out what's what.
And there's been some concerns from other community meetings about privacy. Is ShotSpotter going to pick up the conversation I'm having with somebody else, and then everyone's going to know what I'm doing?
No, if you could hear the gunshots on what we had played for you, it's going to pick up the audio during that time the gunshots are being fired. After that, you're not going to pick up any audio. There's not going to be anybody that might be reporting something on that audio or anything like that. The only audio you might get is when the gunshots are being fired, you might catch some screams or somebody calling out a gang name or something like that. Then after that, once the shots stop, you're not going to be hearing any of that audio. So you can rest assured that you're not going to have your information or conversation you're having on ShotSpotter.
Looks like we've got another question.
Hello. Besides the sensitivity of ShotSpotter, what other ways can it be improved? Like, basically, beside knowing if it's like a gun or a fridge that fell over, what are other ways it can be improved?
I think if your question is, how can ShotSpotter get better?
Yeah, basically.
I don't know, this may be a better question for Ken, but they're constantly working on technology, and he was talking to me this morning when I was meeting with him about the ability to actually follow direction a little better. So if a car drives northbound on a street and is shooting out of the car, that it will be able to provide even a better direction of where the direction that the shooting was happening and where the vehicle may have left. I don't know if you want to add to that at all, but.
No, that's why we have so many police constantly trying to improve it and make it better. Sometimes we have struggles in a particular environment, right? If there's a whole lot of unusual noise that's constant in background, that we have to fine-tune the system to do that. And occasionally, we're in over 100 cities in the United States, right? And every city is a little bit different structures and where they place it. So we'll have to array the sensors in a special way because of buildings or different things like that. But that's a constantly improving science and technology.
Can the technology differentiate types of weapons being fired?
We wouldn't say that, but the human ear can tell roughly the caliber, right? If you listen to this, all that pitch sounded very similar. If it was a larger caliber gun or a smaller caliber gun, you could humanly pick up. You wouldn't say, oh, I know that's this, but you can say that's a larger caliber than the other one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one more question. So, for example, so
I don't know, and that's why I didn't put myself on the panel, because that's way beyond my skill set to answer.
I would say, I'm not an IT wizard by any means of the imagination, but I would think that you'd have to be highly sophisticated and also know where the sensors are placed in order to even attempt to do something like that. So I'd be comfortable saying, and I'm sure Ken as well, that I'm sure, about 99.9% sure that that's probably not going to happen. And if it is, I'd like to meet that person.
In any time we've heard, or the officers have found out that the shot spotter activation was not gunfire, we contact shot spotter immediately and tell them this was not gunfire, it was confirmed to be a firecracker, and we get a response back saying thank you. It's actually added to their training of their employees. So the employees are then listen to that, and they kind of get the ear that, okay, wait a minute, that's a firecracker.
So my question is, what is the percentage of success with the program? Like, when you go, are you actually able to get the guy to fire the gun or the person to fire the gun? And how, what is the percentage of this? Is it 80% of the time you get the guy, or you just find shells? So
Out of all the activations we've had, primarily we find shell casings, and we haven't had, not an arrest on every single one. The Evo Finder, though, we have been able to tie it. So one of my aspects of my job is to link cases. So once we get the information back from the lab, I will figure out how many cases are linked to one firearm, and then that information is given to our organized crime unit, our gang unit, and then their job is to go out and to try to find the people who have that firearm. And that they've actually had a very good rate of return on. I had what I called my most wanted guns, and 6 of them that we've put out have been found.
You'll see that a lot of times the same gun is being used quite a bit. Because a lot of people think, man, there's so many guns out there, and I agree, there probably is. But when it comes to the gang violence and stuff, these guns get handed around to different gang members, and so these guns are being used constantly at different scenes, and that's why she's able to link them up through the Evo Finder technology. Each time we get a set of casings or evidence, that gets put into Evo Finder, and that database just grows and grows and grows to where Lisa can do the link analysis and link these certain casings to each other. And when we do find one of these guns in the hands of a gangster or wherever it might be, that's a huge lead for us as to where we go from there. Do we look at that specific person? Where did he get the gun from? Where did the gun originate from? There's different avenues we go with the technology and the leads that are produced from that. And it's like Lieutenant Burdick said, if we know which gang is primarily doing the shooting, if we have Country Boy Crips that are victims, you can probably rest assured that the East Side Crips are probably the ones doing the shooting. So it puts us in a general location and a general idea of exactly where we're going to be looking for those guns, those suspects, and everything else.
I have a statement and a question. I just wanted to make a quick statement. I know a lot of people are getting up and leaving. A lot of the students have class at 7. It's not that they're no longer interested in what's going on. So I just wanted to make that statement.
I thought Jeff's jacket was turning them away. But.
Maybe, who knows? Are there any other competing technologies out there? I know you had mentioned at the beginning that you said you had heard of, you knew of ShotSpotter in other cities, and then I heard you state that you're in over 100 cities. But you had also stated there wasn't great results, and so you wanted, to go for this grant, apply for the grant, see if you had better results. Why ShotSpotter for you guys?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but I think you guys are one of the only ones with this technology out there. That's tried and true. 100 cities, that's huge. Mm-hmm. And if you were to pull up some of their, audio from some of the different cities, such as Chicago and areas like that, you would be amazed about, some of the gunfire that goes on. And I wish we could have the whole city covered in ShotSpotter, but obviously it's not financially practical. But if we could, that would just be unreal. But unfortunately, it's very expensive. We have to concentrate where we put the ShotSpotter based on the information and numbers that Lisa crunches, and try to put it in the best case scenarios to where we can combat some of the gun violence and everything else. The only thing we can do is try to get better at combating the gun violence and doing what we can. It's not going away, unfortunately. That's just the nature of the beast. So it's up to us to get innovative, creative, use technology like ShotSpotter in order to decrease this gun violence. My opinion is one homicide is one homicide too many. And I was working in a gang unit at the time both those kids were killed. And I tell you, it's hard to see those children in that capacity when they're sitting in the hospital and they pronounce them deceased at the results of a gang-related shooting. We take that personal, and so we spend countless hours, and both those cases, we have suspects that are waiting trial on those cases. So we want to prevent that kind of thing from happening. The collateral damage is devastating to the community, it's devastating to families, it's devastating to us that are out there trying to combat it. So.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Something else as far as the shell casings, our success rate of finding casings is dramatically higher with ShotSpotter. I mean, before ShotSpotter, when I was out driving around on cases, when you have a ShotSpotter call, it like Sergeant McAfee said, the chance of you driving on the right street, looking in the right flower bed is minimal, you know. So this really hones down and puts the officers in the right spot. It cuts down the amount of time we spend looking, which means officers can get back to work doing other things quicker. So it helps response times for other things too, because we are so short-staffed that if we've got 5 officers walking up and down streets, looking through flower beds and front yards, looking for shell casings that may or may not exist, but if we know that we have a confirmed gunfire incident, we know where to start looking, and you get out of your car and you're almost stepping on them right as you open the door. It really does decrease the amount of man hours and woman hours that we spend. So.
Any other questions for our panel?
I was just wondering if you had like a donation center, like specifically for technology like ShotSpotter, that we could donate to as part of community involvement.
To kind of help pay for the cost?
Well, I think typically it would go through the city's foundation and it would have to be allocated then. But there is a process for it that if somebody wanted to, we could go through the city foundation.
And that's a great question, and we appreciate that. You know, I mean, just the thought alone is huge. You know, I mean, if you got a couple $1 million you want to kick our way, you know. No, but that's a great thought, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, when she's done with school, making all the money, right? I will say that the Bakersfield Police Department is always looking into federal grants, just like the grant that we got to start the ShotSpotter system. We are continuously looking at other grants that we can apply for and hopefully get.
Any other questions? Oh, looks like one in the back.
Hi, I came in here a little bit late, so I apologize if you already went over it. But you mentioned that you have sensors that detect the sounds. How do they work? I mean, do you have them spread through the city? Are they hidden from view, or where are those sensors?
Yeah, I don't know what the sensors look like. They didn't give us that information, so it's quite a secret. But basically, they use triangulation. So they, through the area that we've got these deployed, they're put on buildings or wherever they happen to be. And then when a gunshot goes off, the 3 closest to the sound then are able to measure how long it took the sound to travel between the sensors. It does some math, and it figures out by triangulation where the shot came from, and then gives it a GPS tag, just like you would if you're using a GPS for mountain biking or anything else, and that's where the dot on the map winds up. So I can't tell you what they look like. I don't know. It's something super, super secret. So while I have the mic too, I'd say, as you are probably all aware, we're in a process of hiring 100 officers. So if any of you are interested in a line of law enforcement, whether it's as an officer or as a crime analyst or someone in community relations, please either come talk to us or hop on the city website, and we'd love to have young smiling faces. We need more officers and help, and for every officer we get, we need more support services folks. So it's a good time. We're hoping to keep growing and keep providing a quality service to the community.
You guys have anything? Fire away. More questions?
Yeah, got one right there.
She's hiding behind her.
The smiles.
I actually have two questions. About how many, because I know you guys mentioned that like 3 sensors have to go off. So about how many sensors there is, like in the 3 square range, square mile that you guys put. And another question.
A lot.
Just to know, like, why is the sensors so expensive? Are they like really big, or is it like hard to put it in different buildings? Just to know why we don't have them all over the city.
I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if Ken can divulge that or not. It depends on, as he said, on the size of the buildings. Is it a lot of trees? Are there, are the roofs concrete? Are they wood? I mean, there's all kinds of things that change. Just like if you were walking down a hallway here and someone yells your voice or yells your name, sometimes you can tell exactly where they came from, and other times based on, the things around you, it changes how the sound bounces and the sound carries. So they've done the homework to figure out with this kind of building structure made of brick or block or wood and the surroundings, how many they need and where they need to put them so that it does what it's supposed to do. So, yeah.
And it totally depends on the geography of how many sensors you need to be effective. But one of the cool things that the company, well, I'm proud because I'm a new employee, but in Africa, the people who poach the rhinos and things for their horns. So we deployed a system into the national park there and have helped stop poachers. And why I bring that up is because it's relatively flat and there's not much in the way. It's very few sensors can cover a large area because the sound travels so much. So if that makes any sense to you.
And just like we were talking about the property crimes, we don't want these sensors to get taken or stolen or damaged or anything like that. So the less we know about where they are, what they look like, everything else, it's better for everybody because, again, this stuff is so expensive and we need to keep the technology in place. And if we have to keep replacing things, then that's even more cost effective and everything. So it's important that we keep this equipment intact and it's beneficial for the community and for the police department.
If you think about it like renting equipment, right? If you rent a refrigerator, that's my kid renting a refrigerator, you're paying for that. So you're paying for not just the items that are on the buildings, you're paying for the technology that's behind them. You're also paying for the people who are listening to all these phone calls. I mean, there's so many working parts of the ShotSpotter system that, the cost is comparative to what you're getting back for it.
And that's just not Bakersfield. I mean, we're talking about 100 cities that ShotSpotter covers. So you can imagine how many, just constant, I would imagine, Ken, that the shots or the calls are just coming in. And so it's 24/7, yeah.
I've been on the phone with them before, and all you hear in the background is bleep, 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 and that's the sound it's making every time they're getting a hit. And it was like constant of them just always answering or listening and typing, and it was amazing just being on the phone with them to talk to them, and which is the other thing. I can call them anytime, and they'll answer, and they'll help me out and direct me to where I need to go or answer any questions that I have. So that's huge. 24/7, I can just call them up and say, okay, this is what I have. And if we respond to a scene and we know it's within where ShotSpotter should be picking something up, we can actually contact them and say, okay, we had a shooting here, you didn't activate, so is there a shooting there? And they will actually go back and they will look through all of their hits and they will see if maybe only 2 sensors picked it up. And then if only 2 sensors picked it up and they find out, yes, there was an actual, we know for a fact there was gunshots there, they'll push that through to our system, so then I have that data.
Any other questions for our panel?
I have a question, and first, thank you for being here. This was really an awesome panel. I'm sure everybody can agree. So my question for anyone who wants to answer it is, can you describe a crime incident that had a really big impact on you, preferably a positive impact, involving ShotSpotter, maybe a life saved that really meant something to you?
I mean, I'll go back to when ShotSpotter hours into implementation, where we were able to get the information regarding the homicide that we had. I mean, we were able to get that information relatively quickly. We were able to get up on suspects and find out who they were, and a short time later, we knew who the shooters were, and we're able to get those guys in custody after some work. And in my opinion, anytime you get a shooter or a gun off the street, and that's a life saved, or a potential life saved. We have, like I said, I mean, gun violence is not going away. It's just the nature of the beast, the world we live in. We're not going to eliminate it completely. All we can do is take necessary steps to try to limit it, or, you know, prevent others from happening. So as far as a positive aspect, and it was right when ShotSpotter was implemented, we were able to get that information and get those shooters off the street right then. So as far as that goes, that was my positive impact that it's had.
I think within the first 2 to 3 weeks of ShotSpotter being rolled out, we had a shooting up in Northeast Bakersfield on Lake Street. A young man was shot in the chest. It barely missed his aorta up above his heart. There was a ShotSpotter activation that got us to where he was very quickly. I think if we would have been there so quickly, he may not have made it. That's something that, like other members of the panel have said, it takes us, if we get a report of a shooting, somebody's in their house at night, they hear gunfire, they really have no idea of the direction because of the geography, the objects that are in the landscape, where it's coming from exactly. It almost pinpoints it. I know the cell on the system is within 25 meters, but it's been for a majority of the ones that I've been to where we found casings. If I look on the map, that's where they are. And it's usually, I'd say, within 10 feet. I think they're really underselling the technology.
But it's right on the money. If it says it's here, that's where it happened.
I was just in San Diego earlier this week, and they shared a story from a month ago where they had a shooting incident, and one person was claiming to be a victim, and someone else is dead, and the person who's claiming to be a victim, ShotSpotter, because of the sequence of when they were shooting, were able to prove that the victim actually instigated the thing, right? And somebody shot back at him, and that's kind of the power of ShotSpotter, to bring truth to an event and protect the innocent and also identify the guilty, I think.
I don't necessarily have a direct story, but Lisa, you mentioned it earlier, only 14% of all of the ShotSpotter activations that we're receiving have a call for service coming in with it, meaning somebody heard something and is calling it. And to me, when the system was being tested, I actually got to go out the evening that they tested it, and the very first location in which the system was being tested before it was completely live, it was working, but we just wanted to make sure, with ShotSpotter, that it was functioning the way that it should. It was this whole ordeal, and the very first location we went to, I kid you not, there were 50 rounds fired. And we actually called our communications center and let them know, hey, we're getting ready to start in the next couple minutes, so if you guys get calls from this community because they've heard a series of shots, let them know that we are testing. We went on Facebook, we announced it, all of our platforms to let them know, hey, community, heads up, we're testing our system. That first location after those 50 rounds were fired, can anybody guess how many calls we got about that? We got 0. We got 0 calls. Now, there's a lot of contributing factors as to why people may not call, but to me, that was so indicative of one more tool that we as a law enforcement agency can provide to our community. We need to be more proactive in ending this violence, in trying to prevent it. Obviously, we need your help as a law enforcement agency, but to me, I don't have a direct story, but that to me was just incredibly powerful, and to be honest, it broke my heart a little bit. Because you heard Lieutenant Burdick said it earlier, crime is not a police department problem, it's a community problem because it affects our community first. And so to me, that was very powerful. But if this is one more tool that we can have at our hands to be better for our community, then I think it's absolutely something that's needed.
Yeah, you just point us in the right direction. Like I said, we're good at our jobs, and we can get the job done with minimal information. And we're not asking people just to come forward, get on the news, to say, I saw this, and here's me on my phone, and this and that. Point us in the right direction. Give us a little bit of what you have. Just give us what you have, and we can work with that. And, again, I can't say it enough, that we need the community's involvement. We need the community to get involved in the See Something, Say Something, movement. And nowadays with phones and social media, Ring cameras, security systems, somebody, no matter if a crime's committed, more than likely somebody somewhere or something caught part of that. You know what I mean? So we just need some of that to come through our P3 tips or anonymous phone calls or sending emails, something like that, and just point us in the right direction. Like I said, you give my unit just a little bit of stuff, we'll investigate it, and we'll get to the bottom of it. We have good investigators, we have good police officers out there on the street. The gang unit that Mike works in right now, those guys work tireless hours to get out there and prevent some of this gun violence. And that's where my passion lies, because I was in the gang unit at one time. Lieutenant Burdick was in the gang unit one time. Lisa started and was in the gang unit for several years. So that's where our hearts lie, and the gun violence really hits home with us, especially when innocent victims get killed or shot.
All right, I think that's actually a wonderful place to end. So I want to thank our panel, everyone, for coming out and talking with us tonight. And I want to thank everyone in the audience as well as those watching at home on the live stream. Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you for listening. If you want to come up, talk to anybody afterwards, get a little bit more information, get cards or whatever, please do so. But thank you very much again. Have a great evening and a safe trip home. All right, good night, everybody.